So today is the day Activision finally decided to address skill-based matchmaking and all the details regarding just how matchmaking works in Call of Duty. Before we get into this, one thing I would like to include is how they're only talking about multiplayer, and this does not include Warzone. So just keep that in mind. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go through here, just go over what they're talking about regarding skill-based matchmaking, and just all that, I guess. Alright, so hopping into this, the first thing they go over is just how the matchmaking is made up. So we have the connection, time to the match, the skill, your skill performance, the platform you play on, voice chat, what your input is, your recent games, your playlist diversity, and finally your connection. So they go into about how ping in your connection is just really important into the matchmaking process, which I kind of sometimes have a hard time believing because I could do good in one game, be on 15 ping, next game I'm on 200, so I'm not too sure about that one. And the second thing that they listed was the time to match, which I guess is just how long it takes to find a game. And then they have this whole list of other just smaller things right here, such as the amount of playlists you usually play, the different ones you usually play, the maps you've played recently, as well as modes. Of course, your skill, which I usually think has a large part in this, whether you're on controller or keyboard and mouse, your platform, whether you're PC, PlayStation, if you're on Warzone mobile, then mobile, or Xbox, and then if you have voice chat enabled or disabled, which I don't really know how that would actually affect anything, but I guess it does. So this is basically just their simple explanation for how their matchmaking works in multiplayer. So let's hop into just the rest of whatever they have in here. Alright, so first right here, they talk about your connection or your ping. Basically, they just try and find the closest, most effective server. However, that's most of the time, almost always the closest one to you, they say. They didn't went into detail about their client server model, I guess, which is their dedicated server and the client, and just all that, I guess. And then their netcode, which according to them, just works lower latency. Alright, so next after the connection, they are talking about measuring the time it takes to find a match. So they try and use Rustmint as an example on Modern Warfare 3, and how people will leave the lobbies to try and get shipment, and that just leaves an empty spot on their team. Alright, so in measuring time for matchmaking, they say if the lobby wait is excessively long, players will just leave and restart it, or just quit it or whatever. However, according to them, that doesn't speed that up and can be supposedly detrimental. Wonder what they mean by that. And then they talk about how in Rustmint, whenever people leave Rust, whenever it goes onto Rust to try and get shipment, that their matchmaking system kind of just really just tries to fill that spot in Rust, which makes it seem like, Rust has better odds to get than shipment would. And then according to them, trying to cherry pick maps may have an unexpected result. Okay, so what do you mean by that? So if I remember, this happened a lot in Modern Warfare 2019 with Shoot House, because you leave, try and never get shoot house, and then you try and get shipment, another shoot house, and then do that again, another shoot house, do that again, another shoot house, and it kind of just continues on. And I guess maybe they're trying to keep you in there. I don't know if they're trying to say by this last line right here, but I guess it kind of just explains why, for example, Modern Warfare 2019, like I just said on Shoot House, you'd keep getting Shoot House every time you leave. Alright, now we finally get into one of the most important factors that people usually bring up with skill-based matchmaking, the skill part of it. So the player's skill is determined by their overall performance, so kills, death, wins, losses. For some reason, the mode selection, and I don't know why they'd include the mode selection, but of course you reach recent matches and all that stuff. And apparently they find out to find the correct enemies and teammates. I'm not really too sure about the teammate part sometimes, but and that apparently, I really don't know about this, but they're very vague about this, so I'm not really too sure what they're trying to if they mean something different, but they apparently have had skill-based matchmaking, SBMM, in Call of Duty since Call of Duty 4, which by the way came out in 2007. Now, like I just said, they are being very vague about what they mean by they had this in Call of Duty 4. So they could mean like team balancing or something like that, or like the connection, just mainly the connection. But they didn't really go too in depth about that, so we're probably just gonna have to wait until another time or never know. So yeah, then they just go on about how they use your performance to make sure that like the like differences and just gap in between skill and lobbies isn't that different. And then they say like you're supposed to get like wins and losses around just more about like kind of the same amount of them, I guess. And then they go on about how whenever lower skill people they just keep losing, they end up just quitting or just not playing at all. And it like just has an effect on the player pool. Yeah, that's kind of fair enough, I guess. And then apparently whenever there are no like a lower skill people in there, then it's just the high skill people, and then the ecosystem is worse for everyone, I guess, according to them at least. And they also mention how a bunch of people, they feel like they always get the sweaty lobbies because of how they play. However, they are apparently testing it though, so that's pretty cool, I guess. And then finally, for the final thing, before we get into the community questions, you can probably see them a few times there. And they're going on about how in the future they're going to see and have like a ping and matchmaking sheet or info sheet or whatever about people who want to know more about that. So you're just going to have to wait for that. But let's head into the community questions here. For the first question, they basically don't take into account how much time you've played or just really how much of time you spent on the game, I guess. Now, this is a pretty big question a bunch of people have been theorizing about and questioning Activision about. Does the Call of Duty matchmaking process impact any in-game elements such as hit registration, so hit reg, player visibility, aim assist, damage, and etc.? And apparently, no, that does not happen in Call of Duty. So that's pretty important to keep in mind, I guess. Now, this next one here is also a pretty big one that I saw people talking about, and it's, does spending money on Call of Duty affect the game? And according to them, money spent does not affect the game at all. This is also another one I saw people questioning about, and it's about them using AI in their game, and apparently they do not currently use that, but they will tell us if that changes in the future, which they didn't say anything about this, so I mean, maybe they might add AI in the future, but we'll just have to wait and find out. Alright, I'm just gonna go through a couple of these right here. So, do content creators get special consideration? No. Have you ever considered an opt-in, opt-out system? No, because that'll create like a split in the player loot pool, I guess. Have you ever tested removing skill as a consideration for matchmaking? They have, but it apparently hasn't worked. And then finally, have you considered removing skill from just general multiplayer game modes? They have considered this, and I guess have tried it, and they might try it in some future modes, but we'll just have to wait and see. And yeah, that's just it for the blog post they had out today regarding skill-based matchmaking. It did have a lot that a bunch of people asked about, but they were kind of vague about some of it. But I mean, the people who wanted to know about it, they got what they asked for, I guess. And this is just all that they included in it.